Thank you for engaging in this asynchronous professional learning experience. This session is estimated to take about 20 minutes to complete. Please feel free to engage in the learning with a teaching partner or team, and know that you may pause the video at any point throughout the session to discuss the information and ideas. This session includes multiple goals. As you prepare to learn, please pause this video, read through the session objectives, and align your intentions to the session goals. To begin, we want to establish a shared why for this particular area of professional focus and learning. For several years, GCISD Social Studies has been working to prepare students for SCR item types. Let's take a look at some student outcome data to see how we have been progressing in this area. Take a moment to orient yourself to the data presented on this slide. Notice how our 8th and 11th graders have performed on SCR items for the past 3 years on their end-of-year STAR or EOC exams. Pause the video and discuss or individually reflect on the data presented here. What slight but intentional changes could make a difference in the data shown on these graphs? Now let's take a moment to review the known information and expectations as it pertains to SCR items. This information should not be new, but if it prompts questions or need for clarification, please reach out to Mary Thornton or Brandy Carey. First, let's talk exigence and unit assessments, or TEAS checks. Remember that each TEAS check will include at least one SCR item. The more our students practice and receive feedback on these item types, the more confident and proficient we know they will become. Please remember that all SCR items must be manually scored in exigence within 1 week of administering the assessment. Once you enter the score for the student response, the overall TEAS check average will update to include any awarded points. It is critical that we don't miss this step, as exigence will default to 0 points for SCR items until you override this score. Next, let's review a little more about the known format and scoring criteria for SCR items. Short constructed response questions will always be written with a 2-part format, and each item is worth 2 points. Grammar, sentence structure, spelling, punctuation, etc. does not factor into the score. Students need to understand how to accurately and efficiently answer the 2 parts of the question. To support this, the expectation is that students are taught to plan their response using the TLC chart. This is a simple structure students can use to break down the prompt and plan a complete response. The TLC chart may be used in classroom instruction as a handout, exit ticket, anchor chart, etc. On assessments, students should be provided with a blank piece of paper or a blank chart to practice planning their response in a testing environment. So let's dive into this practice a little deeper together. We will use this sample question to practice using the TLC chart together. As a reminder, here is what the taught version of the TLC chart looks like. A tested version is also available in the curriculum documents that can be used on STAR assessments for students with approved designated supports. Please reach out to Mary, Brandy, or your campus testing coordinator if you have questions about this. At this time, you have a choice of how you'd like to practice with the tool. You may choose to use a blank piece of paper to draw your own TLC chart. This chart is designed so anyone can quickly draw the chart on paper. Alternatively, you may wish to use the full taught version of the instructional tool. If so, simply type the link on the screen into a new window to make a digital copy for yourself. Note that the link is case sensitive. Please pause the video at this time to prepare your materials. Now that you have your materials, we are going to practice together. First, we begin with the T, and we think about what background information is known or provided. For example, we have noted that this is an automotive plant in Michigan. We also recorded that this makes us remember terms like Henry Ford, the Model T, and the assembly line. Take a moment now to pause and record the background information you know and think of in regards to this question. Next, we proceed to the L, and we look for a stimulus to review as well as any other key information provided. We noted that a picture is provided of a Ford Motor Company factory in 1913. Additionally, the question itself mentions the term manufacturing process, which must be important for us to think about. Please pause the video, look for key information, and record your thinking on your chart. Finally, we move to the C step, and we simply count the 2 parts of the question. In this case, the prompt asks us to explain how the production and sale of goods was affected by the process shown in the picture. So the 2 things our answer must address are production and sale. Now let's move down the TLC chart. Since we know the 2 parts are production and sale, we will record that at the top. Part 1 is production, and Part 2 is sale. Now take a moment to pause and record your thoughts about how the process in the photograph affected these 2 components of the automobile industry. Our example notes that the assembly line made it faster and easier to produce more cars. Part 1. We also know that basic principles of economics dictate that more product equals a cheaper cost, so the sale of the cars would be cheaper. Part 2. It is important to note that our example here does not list all possible answers. You may have thought of other points to emphasize. The goal is to clearly explain how the production and sale of automobiles was impacted by Ford's assembly line. The final step is to put the two parts together into a final response. You may even wish to provide a sentence stem to support students in getting started. You'll see on the screen that we have put the two parts together into a direct answer to the prompt. Knowing that student responses on STAR are initially scored by computer, our goal is to teach students to write as clearly and efficiently aligned to the prompt as possible. Encourage them to leave no doubt or room for interpretation in their response. Students should be as clear and direct in their responses as possible, even if sometimes that means crafting simpler, more formulaic responses. Our shared goal is to maximize the points awarded. Now let's take a moment to review some real student responses to this question. Knowing what we know now, and after thinking through the possible responses to the question, what score do you think the following responses received? Student response number 1 begins with, Ford started making cars which helped with transportation and traveling. What is your guess on the score? Remember that grammar, spelling, punctuation, etc. does not count. This response scored a 0. While the information provided is not factually inaccurate, the response clearly did not answer the question. This is why it is so important to teach students to deconstruct the prompt and answer the question directly. Student response number 2 reads, The assembly line made the price of cars go down due to mass production, which helped the process of making them faster and more effective. What do you think this one scored? It scored a 2 because it correctly discusses the impact on the sale and production. Next, let's look at student response number 3. It begins, Ford Motors was a pivotal company. Again, this student provided factual information, but since they only addressed the impact on production, the response scored a 1. Let's look at one more example. The final student response reads, The automobile industry influenced mass production in many other industries as it was more efficient. This led to sale of goods becoming more affordable for the average American. We notice some significant spelling and grammar issues with this response that can slightly hinder our comprehension, but overall we see an accurate answer to both parts of the question. This response scored a 2, highlighting that some grammatical errors are okay as long as you correctly identify and answer the two parts of the question. We want to also take this time to highlight a few ways to support and extend this practice. First, as mentioned previously, consider providing a sentence stem if needed, specifically for students who receive content and language supports. We already know that they need a scaffold, so let's intervene ahead of the struggle. Additionally, as you teach and practice with this tool in class, this provides an excellent opportunity to implement aggressive monitoring. Based on the training you have previously engaged in, the terms Lap 1, Lap 2, and Lap 3 should be familiar to you. As students are working independently to deconstruct prompts and write clear responses, you can monitor their responses and provide feedback in the moment. Lap 1 should focus on correctly identifying the two parts of the question, Lap 2 on generating accurate information related to those two parts, and Lap 3 on clearly putting the information together in a written response. The closing piece of this session is to apply the information to your classroom and content. Review the instructions and complete the tasks outlined on this slide individually or with your team. Thank you all for engaging in this asynchronous session on short constructed responses. Your time, attention, and implementation are truly appreciated. Before you finish up, we have one last ask of you. Please take a moment to record your feedback using the link on the screen. Remember that the link is case-sensitive. Finally, please continue to reach out directly with any questions or needs that might be helpful to you, your team, or your students.